Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In today's edition of Focus on Liberia, we are live on Prime FM 105.5 in Monrovia. We're going to be looking at the aftermath of the Supreme Court ruling in the CPP case and the political implications. What are the next steps for political parties and presidential aspirants as we approach 2023. Again, my name is Dennis Jai. I want to welcome all of you from across the globe. With me to discuss this very, very important subject matter, I have joining me is our planning and governance consultant, Mr. Ahmed Salif, Ahmed K. Salif II. Mr. Salif, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. We're here again. I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
Also joining me is Mr. Kalepo Gonglo, the man who eats, sleep, and dreams statistics. Kalepo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm pleased to be back again at FOL.
And Kalepo is joining us from Philadelphia. Also joining us is the host of The Drive, and he's member of the JMB team, Mr. George Preston Sa Lobo. I always like to include Sa because I love it. George, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Barika Tauta, Dennis Jai. It's good to be here with you people today.
Issa. Also joining us is the guy from TMZ Radio. He's also the host of the Fadiga Show. He's been off the line lately, but he's still in politics. Mr. Al Hussein UJ Fadiga. Al, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. It's Radio Africa now.
Yeah, Radio Africa. TMZ was the first one, right?
Yeah.
All right, and Al, if you can turn your phone to landscape so we can have that perfect
landscape.
Landscape. We can have that perfect view. We're also joined by our colleagues at Prime FM 105, Mr. Prince Mumba. Prince, are you there?
Yes, there is on here. Let me say thanks for joining. Camera. Well, it's good to be here. It's great to be on the.
Prince, you are muted. Complete your thoughts.
Yes, I'm great to be here. Like I said, we find it difficult to be live, but we are trying to get there. But it's good to be here tonight.
Thank you so much. And gentlemen, again, welcome to the show. We are live in Monrovia. The Supreme Court has ruled in the ongoing court case, which was around Section 8.52 of the CPP framework. So in that, the court case was around that if you withdrew from the CPP, you cannot field a candidate in your own name as a political party. The Supreme Court said that is unconstitutional. And so with that has even impacted the ongoing forgery and criminal conspiracy case involving Mr. Alexander Cummings, who's the political leader of the ANC. What does this mean for political parties and what are the next steps? So let me start with Mr. George Lobo, who who is a member of the JMB team. Mr. Lobo, now the JMB team, Unity Party can field a candidate in Lofa County, and also the Alexander Cummings case has been dragged by the prosecutor. Also, it means the CPP finally, we can say rest in peace. What is the Unity Party or JNB team reaction, and what will we go from here?
Dennis, first and foremost, I want to thank Liberians for tuning in this afternoon over here in Arizona. But it's a good thing for Liberia. As you know, Mr. Alexander Cummings and Musa Belete filed a petition at the National Elections Commission, which they were trying to stop the Unity Party from fielding a candidate based on this clause that was inserted in the CPP framework document, especially a document that was submitted, one which the former vice president testified that is not the document he signed. So overall, for us as Unity Party partisans and supporters of Ambassador Boakai, indeed it is a good thing for us because the election in Lofa was postponed because of that issue with the National Election Commission. So now we are happy to move on. We can now have our candidate. We are ready. The people of Lofa have been 2 years without a senator. And so, I mean, it's an exciting one for us. Again, Mr. John, let's be very clear with regards to the other case, the case involving the CPP. The Unity Party never took Mr. Alexander Cummings to court. So as far as I'm concerned, the Unity Party was a member of the CPP, so therefore we had to show up in court to testify. And we said, we went to court and testified and said the truth, nothing but the truth. So for us, we are happy for the country. Hopefully, Mr. Jah, we hope that this will now quiet down the noise in the market. We allow Liberians to begin to look at the candidates from individual perspective, where we can begin to outline our vision and our plan for transforming Liberia, wherein Ambassador Boyka have begun with a statement today, National Election Commission. It's a good thing for us overall. We will now want to focus on our campaign and moving forward and marketing our candidate, and that's where we will be. You are muted. You are muted. I can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. So it means that the Unity Party can now field a candidate in Lofa County, also 2023. But it also means that Ambassador Boyka testified that Mr. Alexander Cummings actually did alter the document. Now the case has been dropped. Is there what's your reaction to that? Is there, you feel bad, frustration, excited? What is it?
To be honest, Mr. Jah, for us, we have absolutely no regret. We do not feel bad, because here's what happened. A Liberian who felt that his right was infringed upon. Mr. Jah, you have to understand, this is a document that Mr. Cummings and Mr. Musa Hassan Bility filed a petition upon. So even whether we were not a party to a lawsuit, I think it was good that we went to the court, because Mr. Cummings was trying to deprive our party from fielding a senatorial candidate on a document we did not sign. So for us, we had a stake in this case no matter what. However, we are glad that the Supreme Court said just what we said when we went to the National Election Commission, that this document, it is unconstitutional, it is illegal. This is why the document we signed did not contain this particular clause. And thank God it has ended, Mr. Jah. Let everybody now focus on their message, what they intend to offer the Liberian people come 2023, whoever will be replacing George Weah. And we are glad that this case, that's all we can say to that.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. R. Hussein UJ Fadiga. What's your reaction to the Supreme Court ruling and the impact it has had on the CPP case? I know you're from Radio Africa. Sometimes I see your comments that kind of slightly leaning toward Mr. Cummings.
Well, don't try to put words in my mouth, Dennis.
No, I'm just trying to say what I know. But if that's not the case,
let me say what I know.
Okay.
Dennis, this speaks to exactly what we have been saying all along. And it's so funny that George is here today. He has changed his tune. It seems like my good friend have some bad relationship with truth telling. I remember the last headline that on every show of his in the Unity Party was criminal conspirator. I think it was he and Costa who were always criminal defendant. I don't know what that means. And that was the topic of his show most of the time. And these guys filed a frivolous lawsuit against Cummings, and I'm not surprised. I'm a little, surprised at the Supreme Court ruling with that low clause there, because I think this will not just only end with the CPP. We're talking about people getting into marriage and people getting into other things, that could be found unconstitutional too, because. But yeah, I'm not a lawyer, so I won't delve into that, but I'm a little skeptical. I think there's a political undertone with the Supreme Court ruling that will come back to honor, and I see lawyers years from now referencing this particular case, and it means something. So just watch out for it. But as far as what does this mean for us, it just shows that, like I said on your show the other time, we have a couple of bad candidates. It showed poor leadership on Joseph Boakai. The CPP fell apart under his leadership. Everybody here has been in this rotation, but as soon as it fell under Joseph Boakai lap, we saw the CDC disintegrate and just turn into something good that brought people like Dara Dillon, and something just disappeared because there wasn't any case. If you look at the independent forensic analysis of the document, it says that, oh, the only thing the government could have done with the mountain of evidence coming from that Blair report, that there was a frivolous lawsuit, just kick it out. And this is what we're seeing. So even if the Supreme Court had not said that, this case was still being thrown out anyway, because there was no way, there was nothing else the government could have done. So
thank you, Mr. Cummings. The ANC and Liberty Party also tried to prevent the Unity Party from feeding a candidate in Lofa. They lost that case.
I think it was a trump card. I think it was a bargaining chip. If you kind of look at this is the law. This was a bargaining chip, and yeah, I think the ANC and the Liberty Party used that as a bargaining chip. Say, hey, if you got our guy in at the court for this, we're going to ban you. You're going to use the same law, because the document was properly. There may have been some, they try to find some gotcha movement, but the document was never altered. So that document was legally binding according to the NEC and every other institution in Liberia. So how we continue on this path, yes, but we can't say much now, because the Supreme Court, which is the highest law in the land, have spoken. So all we can do now is to move forward, and I'll be telling you a way forward. Coming 2023, I look forward to that segment of this.
So you said this was a case of This was a case of you do me and do you. Will you say that attempt to was frivolous? It's just that you wanted to pay debt. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
I don't think it was frivolous. I think it was just fair enough. I think it was fair enough. When you sign an agreement, own up to it. And one morning we saw this good institution that would have at least bring some transformation in 2023. We don't know what we're heading, but like I said, I'll reserve my comment for that part of the segment. But what I do know is that the Liberty Party and the ANC used that as a bargaining chip, and it worked out.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Kalebo Gonglo. Mr. Kalebo, I don't know your name, but you are a biological brother of Councillor Tiawanse Gonglo, who too is running in this presidential race. So let me get your take on what's ensuing, the dropping of the case, the ruling of the Supreme Court, and its impact on the CPP case. What's your initial reaction?
Well, thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Fadiga and Josh. I listened to you guys earlier, but here is what I'd like to say. I'd like to firstly make this clarification. I know my brother is exploring. He's a presidential aspirant for 2023. Views that I'm going to express here today, and even views that I express on other platforms that I appear on, are purely Kalebo Gonglo's view. I do not speak for Councillor Tiawanse Gonglo. I speak for Kalebo Gonglo. I'm very educated. I'm a professor. And what I do is based on my own judgment as a Liberian. Okay? So I wanted to clear that first for the audience to listen to that. So my view on what I believe went wrong in the CPP, I want people to take it for what I understand it to be, not acting on behalf of Tim Gonglo. But let me say that's it. Let me just move quickly. You know, I was in Liberia. I was actually doing a contract in Liberia when the whole idea of the CPP was launched. I actually attended the launching at the United Party headquarters. I was part of the group that marched to that headquarters. Fundamentally, I would say the idea of making it difficult for a party to leave the CPP was actually the original aspiration of all the political leaders. Exactly. I listened to Bronsky, I listened to Honorable Ambassador Boaka, I listened to, in fact, Benana Yue was much more forceful. He said, anyone who will leave, who is going to undermine this coalition we're trying to build, we're going to shame that person for the Liberian voters to know that person. I mean, making it difficult for political parties to leave the CPP was the original aspiration. How they went about it later in terms of putting clause in the framework agreement, what have you, I have no idea on that. But the original idea was how to build a united front against the Weah administration. That was because these were just views being expressed orally, not written on paper, because that was the beginning of the formation of the CPP, and those were the original aspiration. And I think those who attended, I'm sure there are video to that, and people can watch it. Everybody spoke about that, okay? But the thing about the CPP and the part of what I consider to be a failure, a collective failure, not putting blame on any political leader, a collective failure of the 4 political leaders that went into the CPP was the focus on the minuscule, the tiny issue. The focus on changing a government as opposed to addressing the fundamental issue. They needed to change issues as to what do we want to change about Liberia. Not even just about President Weah, but even the Unity Party-led government. There were fundamental errors made by the Unity Party-led government as well. So I think political parties having a ruling party, a former ruling party, and those in the opposition uniting, they needed to address some of the missteps in the past, even from Doe government, from Tarbot, from L.M. Johnson, Sali, and then under Weah, because Weah was just barely 2 years into that when CPP was established. Okay, so 1 year has gone when the second year when CPP came about. Mm-hmm. So there were mistakes, other signs of weakening by Weah or poor judgment by Weah government, but it was not as pervasive as it is today after several years. So they needed to look at some of the past missteps of government or governance issue and address it. They did not address it. They focused on how to take power. And it is that power play that actually damages CPP. And I think, in my mind, I think the CPP can still be salvaged, can still be sustained. It's just that to do so, they need to focus on change issues. What are the things confronting the dumping tax? What are the recurrent issues in governance that government after government they have failed to address? I think if they tackle that and find political leaders who are prepared to take on those tasks, then they can have unity. But to focus on the leadership question, I think was a bad judgment collectively by all of them.
So now that the Supreme Court has ruled, calling that clause unconstitutional, which is like a nail in the coffin of the CPP for now, unless they get back to do another document. Also, the impact on the case involving Mr. Cummings. What's your reaction?
Well, you see, the Cummings case, here is what I thought initially, and I expressed this view on Facebook. The Cummings case, I will say this without any fear of contradiction. The decision of the Supreme Court had that question of whether UP or any constituent member of the CPP can fee a candidate on their own if they so desire. If that issue had been settled before, there was going to be no case against Cummings in the court. The Cummings case was actually intended to prove a point for departure of any constituent party from the CPP. That's my opinion. So if the Supreme Court judgment had come even a week before, I'm confident that Bernard Uribe is never going to go to court.
I wonder why they didn't see it. They are lawyers and everybody else in the CPP. What do you think?
Because I think generally, like I said, original desire was to make it difficult for any political party to leave, and they just framed it, in legal terms, in a very bad way. But that was the desire.
Thank you, Mr. Salif. I know we've spoken number of time on this same issue, but we are in a different setting now. So let me get your reaction to what has transpired within the last 1 week.
Thank you to everybody for leading. We've, like you said, Dennis, we've talked about this several times now since the the Alaco Omnia report came out, I think that, if you look at things in the grand scheme of things, there were several errors that gave the opportunity, the government an opportunity to create a narrative against the opposition bloc. Because if you went into such a political alliance, and I'm not cloth of any context, or, I wasn't there, I wasn't part of it, other than what we see in the media and the public. But it seems to me that there were some assumptions made on the founding members, on the part of the founding members of the CPP framework, constitutive framework instrument that became a bone of contention later on. So, for example, you see Ambassador Joseph Barker has been vice president before. So obviously he wasn't going to want to be a running mate to somebody. At least that's my opinion. And Mr. Alexander Cummings had run for office before, and clearly he has ambition to run for president. And so you bring these two together. I mean, we can talk about the other parties, the that's led to the disintegration of the CPP today. But in my view, you brought those two political leaders together without addressing really. I mean, they set it up in such a way that everybody will have a level playing field. We will have some kind of a selection process. What is the a primary of some sort where the people, partisans, will determine who has the ticket. And so if you create that, and then later you realize perhaps this was a mistake, because Mr. Cummings has all kinds of, he has financial wherewithal, he has, like I'm sure Mr. Barker has supporters who have financial means as well. But just in my view, some of the allegations we were hearing that Cummings was going to bribe people, or he was doing things, to influence vote in a process if there were to be a primary. In my view, that was what really provoked all kinds of things that led to the disintegration of the CPP. Okay, and then what Mr. Gonglo just said, if the original intent was that we will create a framework, a system, an alliance, which would be very difficult for anyone to come out. In that process, if your instrument you created, was unconstitutional from the get-go, later on, people realized they needed to get out of the alliance, and you hold them back. I think that's what the Supreme Court has spoken to. And that's on the one hand. On the other hand, now, I spoke to a Liberian who observes politics a lot. He gave me this analogy. It was funny, but it made me to think about it a lot. He said, think about it this way. It's like you marry somebody's ex-wife, and then you run into a problem with the woman, then you go back to the ex-husband to solve your problem. And the ex-husband tells you, my man, that's how she used to do when we were together, that kind of thing. So you go to the government. The government, of course, has a stake, right, in criminal matters because of all the reasons the Supreme Court cited, public policy and so on. It's the state that prosecutes criminal matters. So obviously, if there was an alleged crime or an allegation of a violation of the criminal code, the state prosecutors will be involved. So I understand that part. But to me, it was like the opposition bloc brought this and threw it on the laps of the government. The government then had an opportunity now to create a narrative that says, you see, to the Liberian people, these people are the ones who you think are the alternative to us. They don't even know how to resolve problems among themselves. So the government ran with that narrative, right? And I think that politics is about winning hearts and minds. Politics is about making your case to the Liberian people, demonstrating that this opposition bloc, the CPP, was a better alternative to unseat President Weah. But if the ordinary Liberians, the voters, are saying all of these kerfuffle among themselves, and then they see you in court, they see you at the National Elections Commission, and you're fighting each other. I think it just gave the government time to reposition itself on some of the vexing issues that Liberian people have been complaining about, and to be strategically positioned now to be able to go into countering some of those lapses, perhaps, that people have concerns about, like the economy, the stable power and electricity, and so forth and so on. So I think, to me, it was really a failure of leadership. on all kinds of level, on technical level, on visionary level. Because if you have lawyers who were there, who drafted that instrument, that CPP, the framework document, and inserted all kinds of clauses, if indeed, based on what we're hearing now, if the commission report is anything to go by, it suggests that all the political leaders were aware when the lawyers reviewed this document and inserted 8.52, right? I mean, of course, that is contested. So I'm just saying, based on that report alone, if you went by that, you realize there was there was an unconstitutional provision that the Supreme Court won't like to go, because the Supreme Court is interested in a larger issue, which is the peace and stability of Liberia, in my view.
Thank you. Prince, let me know, you are in Monrovia on the ground. How is this news from the Supreme Court being received in the various media, on the street? And now that the ANC, the case against Mr. Cummings has been dropped, and Mr. Boakai and the UP can feel a candidate, how is that news playing out in Monrovia?
Thank you, Dennis. So obviously there will be different sides of different views, especially when it comes to the different political party supporters rather, in the different political parties. So those who are supporters of the CPP feel that there were no need to even go to court. I just describe it as a waste of time for the Liberian people, and then giving more time to the government. And the government feels that those who support the government feel that the opposition is not ready to take on the mantra of authority. That's why they've been fighting among themselves. And so those are some of the views we're getting from the public. And so my own thing about it is that I think the court was magnanimous in its opinion in the two cases. I'm saying this to say, Dennis, these were precedent cases, especially the one that has to do with the denial of a political party to fill a candidate. If the court has ruled otherwise, about a precedent case, any case could have been built on in future. And then the issue with the case against Cummings, this was a document that was crafted by educated people, like somebody said on the show. Those are all educated people who sat down and have an intent to put pen to paper as to why they should have themselves together. And so if there is something that seems contrary to what the intents were, I think there were room for internal conflict resolving mechanism, rather than withdrawal. But what I think was responsible for this withdrawal, the UP supporters feel that Ambassador Boakai should be the face and head the CPP as standard bearer. Why Cummings supporters feel that Cummings has the same ability, he has the same qualification, and should be the standard bearer. In the vote, Benana Yuri declared support to support the United Party candidate in any other process. Before the other party was disintegrated to have the Youngly faction and the United faction, you could see the other party aligning with the United Party. Then Cummings supporters now say, look, we're going to use money during the primary to get this in. So the only thing that someone think they could do, like especially the United Party and the AFP that have already pledged support to the UP, was a withdrawal from the process. Whether there is a clause banning us together or not, well, let's move on there, because we feel that Mr. Cummings has a catch and he will manipulate the system of primary so that they can slip away from us, and we feel that Ambassador Boakai is a face. You get me? So those are my own opinion, though. And so at the end of the day, they let the CPP. And then either knowingly that there's a clause of banning them together, or unknowingly. So the two parties remaining now, the ANC and the political faction, say, we're going to have a lawsuit against those people that, look, there's a clause here that you cannot feel a candidate. So I'm just going to narrow it down, is that the the court action, the court decision was in the interest of peace and to not to set a bad precedent that tomorrow people will be judged on just ordinary agreement, political agreement. If you don't live by it, and then they could deny you. And then what do we expect after all of the Rickman rule, after the Wulo battle? What do we expect?
Right.
Do we expect?
That will be the question that we're going to be dealing with as we go on in the discussion. So let me go to Al Hussein Fadiga. Let's talk about the impact of this ruling. And these are the areas I want you to look at. What has been the impact on the CPP-SF, or what remains of the CPP, the impact on individual political parties, including the CDC, the impact on future collaborations, and also 2023 elections. So let's talk about the impact, and let me start with R. Mr. Fadiga. Mr. Fadiga, can you hear me?
Dennis, is Fadiga is trying to connect. I wanted to provide certain clarifications to a few things that were said by Mr. Gonglo and Al Fadiga, and I think the fellow panelists on the panel.
Well, let me start with the.
Oh, Mr. Fadiga, we are having trouble with your connection. It's going to be a long night, Mr. Lobo. Can we address the question that I just raised?
On the issue of no, I can't cover up things. I think it will be better for the people.
And Dennis, if everyone responds,
okay, then what I don't, because I don't want to say, no, let me say this. I don't want a scenario where false narratives get put out, and why it is true I come from the JMB camp and sit there and accept it and can't set the record straight and can't correct it because someone don't want me to respond. Then technically, what's the point? I just can't go on answering questions, because the very first thing is that there were a lot of things said that was not true. So I think it's good for us to set the record straight. And if you ask a question, I will answer using my time. That's it. I can do that. Right. I'm not going to move forward with while I'm here, I want to make sure we set the record straight and let it Liberians, because our audience, people are listening to us, and let's tell the people the truth. I think we owe it to them.
Thank you. And then we're going to be going back and forth on that same question. Al, can you hear me now? Are you good?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Something happened with, I think somebody tried to call me. Okay. The first thing is what impact this has.
Right.
You
got a question.
You asked 3 questions in one. Like the first one was what impact they have on the CPP. I think these guys try to destroy a very good dream. We cannot sit here and say anything negative about the CPP when we saw what the CPP did. It showed what happens when a group of people come together for a common purpose. And we grab a man that could not even get 300 votes during his first trial, and we gave him almost 100,000 votes, which is Dylan. And we saw really all the guys that benefited from the CPP. But like the guy in the Philip, I can't see your name, but the guy in studio, like he rightly said, people went in this thing with all reservation of coming second. Boyka went into this thing here with one preconceived notion that he has to be the head, and he had the number. Somehow they invented this number that he had that was just sitting waiting for him, and everything else should fall in line. And when they started putting in line, they decided to go another way. So how would this play out as far as the CPP is concerned? I think individually, this made Cummings stronger. They say whatever doesn't kill you make you stronger. I think Cummings got free publicity during the process that they thought that they would have destroyed Cummings. It actually made him stronger, because for the last 5 months, guess what? Everybody had been talking about this guy from nowhere that nobody really knew, or people really didn't know about much, even though he did well in 2017. Cummings became the face of the opposition. And what happened again? What did we see? At some point, All the rest of the guys, the Unity Party, the Yoweri Kanga of the Liberty Party, the ALP, they all became like government collaborators. When you see them walking in here with going to court with Serena Sifa, you know how that going to play out 2023. And you know, Cummings became automatically the face of the opposition. Now, this is where depends on how the Cummings and the ANC team going to take this team running rather than sitting and defending a report that have already been done with. They should take the team and moving because Cummings came out as a leader, a very strong guy that is focused, that seems to be the only opposition for now in Liberia. And I think most people going in, and I think this hurt the Unity Party because most people going into this now will be very skeptical of Joseph Boakai. Joseph Boakai is ruthless for power. Joseph Boakai, this is his father, anything in politics in Liberia. So he's desperate. So are those young guys that are following him. So they're gonna be going with this same level of arrogance and desperation that gonna scare a lot of people. And I don't think they're gonna go anywhere. So I see this as an opportunity for something. And then the last one, as far as the unity, the CDC is concerned, they shouldn't think that the opposition is weak. You see, there are some problems that can find its own solution. The notion that George Weah thinks that he's in a comfortable zone. Look, the election 2023 will be about bread and butter issue. It will be about things that are close to people's belly. Was your life better? Has your life been better for the last 6 years? Do you think you want to just have someone that will be carrying on this showmanship and our people are living in abject poverty with the level of destitution in our country? Is that why you want to endure for another 6 years? That level of uncertainty where you do not even know what your next day meal want to be? Do you want that? Or do you want a brand new, fresh ideas? People that have proven, look, it's easy to say, put me there, I will change. It's easier to say change for hope. It's easier to say pro-poll. It's easier to use all the cliche in the world. But George Weah wouldn't have that to say anymore because come 2023, he has already shown what he can do. And the opposition need to hammer it. So there will be better union. There will be better collaboration that we want to see coming up. And I hope the ability faction of the Liberty Party. And I hope that even the Liberty Party now see reason to come together. Not even faction lines, but come together and say, you know what, we made a mistake. Let's get back together and support the clear front runner here, who seems to be Alex Cummings, who came up very stronger, came more focused, more capable of bringing people together.
Thank you. Mr. Fariga, do you believe this court decision has killed the CPP for good? And what will be the impact on any future collaboration? You think when people really want to collaborate again?
Yes, people have to collaborate. There's no way around it. People have to collaborate. The way our politics is set up, the way people will collaborate. You know, I think there's still hope.
Is the CPP dead for good as a result of this? No. All right, thank you.
I don't think the CPP is dead. I think with like-minded people, minus those disgruntled distractors, if like-minded people get together, I think we can put the CPP back together and go on to win election again.
Thank you.
I don't think the CPC is a dead organization here.
Thank you. Mr. Lobo, same question, the impact on the CPP, individual political parties, future collaboration, and 2023.
All right, so before I discuss any impact, let the Liberian people who are listening to us first understand what exactly got us where we are today. And for me, I came here to have a fruitful conversation. And I see my brother R is struggling to be ranting back and forth. I'll begin his statement by saying that the guys from the Unity Party, there was no case, they brought dubious case. Mr. Fadiga, I don't know how well you are informed about what exactly happened, but let me just provide this free education for you. A Liberian citizen by the name of Bernard Ayure said a document was submitted to the National Elections Commission with a signature page, which he signed, and that was not the document he signed. I don't know where in the world you live, but anywhere in the world, that is self-constituted forgery. That's what it is. So I want us to establish that fact. So this notion of let me use
That has been thrown out.
Hold on.
This is not your regular renting thing.
Hold on. Look, Mr. Lobo, just go ahead, please. Please
Yeah,
go
but
ahead.
I can't go ahead when he's interrupting me. So let me make it clear. So again, Al, you brag about a report here, the Cummins purchase report, that his own firm, the aide himself, issued a disclaimer. They were the ones who verified. They were the ones who deemed people credible. That's their business. We don't care. The CPP that you spoke of, a good thing, itself constituted an investigation out. I know maybe you may not have read it, but if you did, the CPP consists of 4 political parties. The ANC, even though Mr. Cummins had representation to that investigation team, refused to sign the final report. However, the other 3 political parties did sign, which constitute the Liberty Party, the Unity Party, and the ALP. And I'll just for the record, that report established that indeed, that the procedures and methodologies set up by the very CPP for the submission and revision of documents were not followed. Not only that, that report also established that the document submitted into NEC carries a signature page of the May 19 document. So I don't know what you're speaking of here today. But however, that I just thought to provide that education for you. Now, let me fast forward this to this question. Mr. Jha will tell you one thing about the impact it has had. I think it's a good thing for the Liberian people. In terms of collaboration, there were 4 parties in the CPP. 3 parties have shown, 3 political leaders have shown that indeed they can work together. So when Al Fadiga speak of desperation, we know who is desperate. We know who, before they even started discussing the issue of consensus, we heard a leaked audio tape of people promising people motorbikes and vice presidential position. Before the process even got started, there were efforts to undermine the very process. And we know who was desperate. The records are there. And I want to say this to all of us here. If people think that you can just come and just talk, and people are betting that the Liberian people don't know what exactly happened, you are mistaken. All this notion about the CDC, the opposition is this, is that. I will tell you this, Mr. Jha. The Liberian people who are suffering, who genuinely know they deserve a better living, they will have a decision to make in 2023. And on the issue of the court ruling, I will tell you, Mr. Jha, I think it was a good thing. The impact is clear now. The Liberian people have an option now to be able to see if the Liberty Party and the ALP can collaborate. Ambassador Boaka have proven that despite of the Unity Party's strength, we went into a collaboration where we accommodated all parties, regardless of your numerical strength, regardless of what vote you got. We demonstrated leadership. We said, let all of us be equal. I think it was a demonstration of good faith, and it takes a leader to do such. Because if we look at other alliances that have been formed in Liberia, just look at the CDC.
Thank you, Mr. Lobo.
Let me end on this note.
Yeah,
George Weah went to his collaboration as the head. Unlike that, the ANC got 7% of the vote. The entire CPP constitute 45% of the total vote accumulated in the first round. The Unity Party alone accounts for 28.9% of that vote. However, we decided that we all will be equal, regardless of how many votes you got. So we demonstrated leadership. So our leadership is not the ability to have people out there making irresponsible, childish press conferences for you or running before the camera. Leadership is demonstrated based on the decision you make. And I think we've demonstrated that to the Liberian people. Even Ambassador Boaka have shown to our people. And that is what I will say to you.
Thank you. Mr. Lobo, just for the record, you've spoken for 5 minutes, 12 seconds. And that's why we just want to go into the issue. If we, if we want to go back and forth, the other hour will want to respond, then we keep going in cycles. So let's, for now, let's stick to my questions and so that we can move forward. Mr. Gonglo, let's talk about the impact. And I listed on the CPP, future collaboration, individual political parties, including the CDC, and the 2023 election, the Supreme Court. Has it killed the CPP finally? And what do you think?
Well, I don't think the Supreme Court decision really killed the CPP finally, like others would say. I think what the Supreme Court decision basically did was to say, hey, there are protected rights, constitutional rights, rights guaranteed by the Constitution are protected rights. No agreement can take those rights away. I think that's all the Supreme Court did here. Like I said earlier, what it behooves those in the CPP now is to organize and say, look, we focus more on the leadership question. We try to answer the leadership question. Let's answer the governance challenge the country is facing. Because everybody who is running, who wanting to be our leader, it is an issue of governance that they want to address. Let's agree on what are the governance challenges and how we want to address it. If we agree on how we're going to do it, then let's find the leaders who are prepared to work together on that. But the impact, as for the impact of the Supreme Court decision, I will tell you, Jai and fellow panelists, it's nothing new, except you are a stranger in Liberian history. Look at the history of Liberia from 1847. Even when the light-skinned so-called mulattoes and the dark-skinned settlers could not even agree, the question of trust deficit in Liberia is historical and is endemic. So the Supreme Court decision didn't even add anything to the lack of trust among political leaders in Liberia because it's historical. The most classic and most recent one was Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and her vice president. It was the lack of trust that they could not work together. So trust deficit among political leaders in Liberia is historical, is shameful, and it's endemic. The Supreme Court decision did not do anything to that trust deficit.
Right.
However,
Mr. Gonglo, the Supreme Court decision, one of the impact is dropping of the Cummings case that was taking Mr. Cummings forever to even focus on his own campaign. And so at the end of the day, the ANC was trying to block the UP from feeding the Kennedy.
Why do you think the ANC was trying to do that? They don't trust the other guys.
Will you say that the ANC became victorious in this case, or is it the UP, or who has been damaged more?
Well, for me, I focus on the overall objective. The overall objective there on the Cummings case was to make it clear that any member in the CPP can leave. Supreme Court settled that issue. And I said earlier, if the decision of the Supreme Court had come a week prior to Bernard Ure filing a complaint, there would have been no complaint. Because the overall objective was to see that anyone can leave the CPP. That was the objective. And this is my opinion. It is not fact, okay? Right. So nobody should fault me on that. That's how I'm reading the trend of the contemporary issue, okay?
So when you look at CPP, CDC, and Unity Party, who came out of this case looking good?
Well, don't put me in the tight spot because I'm Tiawan Gonglo's brother. Maybe if I express something, even though I've said earlier that every view I'm going to express represent my view, Kelebu Gonglo view. But I would say collectively, I think ordinary voters who are suffering in the hamlets, in the villages, women and children who can't even find money to go to hospital, who are dying because there's no drugs in the hospital under the Phil Weah administration, we actually be blaming all of them who group themselves in the CPP. I don't think they're going to let anyone out of the basket and say, oh, this person looks good. Because you know what? If the CPP collapses finally, it will be a leadership question. That if Liberia has monumental tax of underdevelopment, of diseases, poor education, poor health, you need anything you want. If you can't settle just the question of communication, because I consider this just the issue of communication. People were not reading the document, or people put more ego into it. If they could not resolve that, how are you going to resolve the issue of disease, the issue of poor education? I mean, the issue of insecurity, the question of increasing drug addicts in Liberia. How are you going to address those issues? Right. Those are monumental tasks that will keep any leaders up awake for 24 hours, 7
Thank
days
you.
a week. So I think those are serious questions that serious-minded voters will be asking political leaders if they don't come together and see how they can address the governance issue. But like I said, Ja, the whole thing, what is playing out is a question of lack of trust among political leaders. And that lack of trust is historical. It's nothing new. The most classic example is Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, her vice president.
Thank you.
She didn't trust her vice president. Okay.
So Mr. Sirleaf, here is a situation where, according to your friend, you married a woman and you are going to the ex-wife, the ex-husband, to say, hey, this woman is giving me hard time. She's not even cooking for me. What do I do? So in that case, who looks good? The ex-wife, which is I don't
then
know what in your mouth. But
then the ex-husband starts to do things or start to tell you things that will make you not want to be with your wife anymore. That's kind of what it was. But on a serious note here, I think the impact, Dennis, you're asking of the Supreme Court decision, I see it on several levels. One, for the opposition, I think it's a reset, right? It's a reset for them to sort of go back and do pulse incident analysis to see where they are and what the way forward will be. However, because of the vitriolic nature, how acrimonious and I think that there's so much bad blood that been sold amongst these leaders and their aides. This is just an example, right? Fadiga and George Lobo here. It's very vitriolic. It's shouting matches and people are yelling and screaming at each other, and I think that is problematic because what it tells me is that it will be very difficult. It's not impossible at all. I mean, because anything is possible in politics, right? If in the Gambia, the sitting president could have gone after Yahya Jammeh to form some kind of alliance. Anything is possible in politics. However, in our case in Liberia, with these recent court cases, and what happened at NEC and so on, I think that there's so much bad blood that it would take your larger leadership, what Kofi Annan used to call larger leadership, really, an elder in the room. Elder not in the sense of just age, elder in the sense of, okay, someone who then, some of the big picture thing Mr. Gonglo is talking about here. Well, we have these problems ahead of us. This country needs leadership. This country needs, a different direction, if that's the message of the opposition. However, these things are sequentially done, right? You can't get to governing until and unless you have authority, you have power, you have state power. So to get to state power, that's where the sticky issue is. All of these individuals, each of them wants to become president, and they have their followings that are telling them this is the best way, this is the best route to get to the presidency. I think that so given that right scenario, I think that Unity Party folks are going to go their own way and find a different alliance, whatever conglomeration they think they can form. And I think Mr. Cummings is going to bet on a second round prospect to say, you know what, let's go to the people. Let's go to the Liberian people and run our campaign and make our case and win hearts and minds and see who gets to the margin of victory strong enough that can line up with a second round prospect. And I think that's where the horse trading then will begin. It's not now. You won't see anything substantive happening in terms of them coming together, in terms of coalition. There are people who are so bitter, they're yelling and screaming at everybody, they're fighting. They're not going to form any coalition. You keep this tip. What will happen after the election? Someone said that if President Weah is under 10% or just barely above 10% of the total, then it's going to be problematic for him. You have two other parties vying for who goes. So in that second round, we will know the decision based on what vote who gets. And therefore, because the Liberian people would have spoken, it will force some kind of alliance. And this alliance then will be strategic about, okay, so if I back you and you win the presidency, what does that mean for my people? What does that mean for my policy, my vision for Liberia, and those kinds of things? So there are all kinds of different implications I see here. When you look at the criminal case, I don't think it was an exoneration of Mr. Cummings necessarily, and that's a whole different layer to look at, right? I mean, everybody's celebrating. Buckeyes people say they have just two objectives, that they be able to field a candidate in the local county election, and that they be able to withdraw from the CPP, because they believe that that clause was, they didn't insert it. According to them, it was illegal, and they want to be able to withdraw. Why? Because they're looking at 2023, a bigger picture is way beyond Lofa County. If let's say the Supreme Court had ruled against them, it would have meant consequentially Mr. Buckeye wouldn't have been able potentially to run for president in 2023. So that was their objective. Everything else is secondary. Mr. Cummings has his objective, and these people are celebrating. They're looking at this as a victory, and they're running with that. And so that begs other questions. Perhaps we'll get to later on. What happens to Liberty Party? What happens to ALP? What happens to the Musa Ability, the Young Kanga Lawrence? What's the influence of Mr. Ure on Buckeye and so forth? There all kinds of different factors here. But I think for me, those are the big picture issues that I'm looking at right now.
And I like that point. So if we look at CDC, we look at Unity Party and ANC, who came out of this looking good?
Well, who came out looking good? So you just look at the narrative that are emerging, and that's natural in politics, right? No matter what happens, everybody's developed. If you are a good strategy, your people think quickly. They want to be able to pivot this in their favor and say, listen, this is a win for us. Cummings' people are saying this is the win for us. It was the bogus case. It shouldn't have gone to court. The government didn't have the evidence, and they saw the Omnia and Alaco report, and they were so chronicled, the evidence was chronicled in such a way that they didn't allow us to present our case. And, and so they had no alternative but to drop this case. And so we've gone to court. We've filed now. We have the case dropped with prejudice, and therefore that's good for our candidate. Let's move forward. You heard Fadiga say that it made Mr. Cummings popular. That's a different conversation, right? The Buckeye people say our two objectives were met, with Victoria. I think it made Cummings bad. Let's move forward. We are the real people to listen to. The George Weah side, I'm still trying to understand. I told you earlier, the government's narrative was, all right, so let's push them in such a way that this coming guys with dirty him will make it difficult for him in the political space, and then we create a narrative that, well, all of them, they're not able to provide the leadership that Gonglo here, Kelebo Gonglo is asking for. They can't even solve low dispute among themselves. Is this the alternative? That's kind of what they're asking. They've been asking the Liberian people. In the meantime, they've been buying time, right? The McGill going around, making all kinds of moves. So who comes out successful or shining sort of out of this? I think the jury is still out. We have to give a couple more weeks to see how these different political actors strategize going forward.
Thank you. Mr. Lobo, let me come to you. If we talk about the elder in the room, that's definitely Mr. Buckeye. Under his watch, the CPP disintegrated, entered into a court case where he testified that, yes, this has, and people are saying what people saw that was, why is he, this is a Ure case. Ure has like 1%. He doesn't have a stake. So people saw that as following Ure's lead. Ure, who others look at has been insignificant in the coalition. Okay, so it fell apart under Mr. Buckeye. They tried to prosecute Cummings. Cummings said this case is bogus. Now the charges are being dropped. Where does the Unity Party go from here?
So, Mr. Job, first and foremost, I want to be very, very clear as a supporter and as a member of the JMB's team. I don't think we will appreciate you calling Mr. Ure as his party being insignificant, because if that was the basis, I think everybody who went to the collaboration were insignificant to the Unity Party. Because if you put the three of them together, their total is about 15%. So basically, I think we treated all of them as equal, and that is how we would treat all political parties and all Liberians. However, with regards to your question, I want to say a few things here, Dennis. On the issue of the elder in the room, Ambassador Buckeye made every single effort. I think the Liberian people know the facts. Where there were multiple meetings that were called, to resolve this thing behind closed doors. Look, from the day Ambassador Boakai took over the CPP chairmanship, it was a clear, calculated attempt by Mr. Cummings to undermine Ambassador Boakai's leadership. Mr. Cummings and his entire ANC never attended any meetings they were invited to. There were always excuses. When we speak on these issues, Ambassador Boakai, who we claim is the old man, he said he can't walk, he can't do this. Yet then, he attended every single event, every turning over ceremony, wherever they hosted it. It was only Mr. Alexander Desperate Hostile Cummings who had all the excuses. So I will say this to you. On the issue of the elder in the room, Mr. Jah, we have to be honest here to the Liberian people. Being an elder does not mean he will force Mr. Cummings. You saw what happened with the CPP. And let's give Mr. Ure some credit on this show. I will give him credit for a reason. Mr. Ure told the BBC during his interview, he said, and I quote, had Mr. Cummings taking responsibility of what happened under his leadership, we will not be here. Imagine that statement. That shows that his colleagues were willing to let go of everything for the bigger picture that Mr. Ogonglo is speaking about. But it was Mr. Cummings who was releasing press releases, who was demanding apology. Think about it. Honor your leadership. Something happened to the legal document that bind us together. Instead of saying, gentlemen, yes, it happened under my watch, I apologize. He said he wanted an apology. So why would we give an apology on the issue of this Dennis Jah? Here's what I think.
So Mr. Lobo, where does the UP go from here?
Also, let me tell you, the Unity Party, Mr. Jah, one good thing we've demonstrated to the Liberian people is that the Unity Party's ability to work with all the political parties. We've demonstrated that in the 2005 election. We demonstrated that in the 2011 election. We demonstrated that in 2017. We must not forget, Mr. Jah, in 2017, Ambassador Boakai was the only presidential candidate who received 19 endorsements from the Senate. Not only that, in almost majority of the county, local officials endorsed Ambassador Boakai's candidacy for the presidency. So the Unity Party that have been around for so long, Mr. Jah, what we are doing, like you saw recently, we were in Nimba. For us, this court case, the only reason you really saw us with that involved heavily was when Mr. Cummings and Bility went to NEC to ban us using a clause that was dubiously inserted into a document we did not sign. That is the only reason we went to the court. On the issue of the elder testifying, you spoke on the image. Let me say this, Mr. Jah. I think it was a good thing. And here's why. The fact that the former statesman will demonstrate to the people that regardless of our disagreement, we may not agree with the government. Yes, indeed, we have concern about the judiciary system, but we will not defy the orders of the court. We must not forget, he didn't wake up and walk to the court. Ambassador Boakai was subpoenaed. The very ANC people were all over social media that he was running away or he didn't have the stamina to walk to the court because George Lobo didn't bring a wheelchair for America. So again,
thank you, Mr. Lobo.
No, let me conclude on this, Mr. Jah. You asked me this question. So again, I will say this to you. The former vice president showing up in the court, I think it's a good thing. Whenever you are accused or you are a party to a lawsuit, if you are subpoenaed by the court, I want to encourage every Liberian, go there and tell them the truth and nothing but the truth. And that is what he did. For us, it's a good thing. We'll be prepared to defend that any given day.
Thank you. Mr. Fadiga, Mr. Cummings' narrative during the trial was the We Are Government speech mean has the potential guard working with Mr. Ure and the Unity Party to bring a bogus case against me. Right? That was the narrative. With the Supreme Court ruling, which many of us see as being very fair, and also the Solicitor General, who was looking merely as the boogeyman in this whole thing, saying, hey, based on this ruling, I'm dropping the case. What does that say about that narrative that they both were working together to bring a bogus charge against Mr. Cummings? And where does Mr. Cummings and the ANC go from here?
Like I said earlier, it is clear, it is obvious. My dad used to always say, he said, when you do secretly, others see secretly. Ure went into the CPP with no intention of running for anything. Ure went in there, and for the moment he found a way within the CPP, the first thing he did, he pledged his loyalty to Boykai. So UP was already Boykai man on the get-go. So there was no vetting process. There was no due diligence to even reservation to support anyone. Ure went in the CPP with a preconceived notion that he was going to support Boykai. So UP and ALP came to the CPP as one. The only party that has some semblance of neutrality is the LP, and that is why we see this internal wrangling, because people are not just ready. You were on the ALP. The ALP is not like a real institution. It's a family that you were own. So it was easy for to go that way. So anybody can use inductive reasoning. Anybody can use common sense to tell that Boykai implicitly supported this guy. He may not have been vocal. So it was a plan all along. We knew it. And my good friend, the guys for the Unity Party, I know those guys, they have a very bad relationship with the truth. So I won't bother delve into that. Like I know one thing for sure, before I even get to answer your question, I know one thing for sure, and I see people still trying to spin this. A couple of days ago, we got a report, a forensic examination of the document. And I can quote you what Claire said. She said, the evidence simply does not stand up. The second thing Ms. Sherry Blair said was that we have been through copies of all the paper and can find nothing to back claims made by the state. If you show me one forensic document examiner in Liberia, someone that can do a forensic audit of document in Liberia, an institution, an individual, or a firm, then I will second guess this institution. Until then, I have every reason that we believe the Kroll report and believe other reports, independent reports that have been coming up. I have no reason to doubt this report. Except when you're trying to come up with your own facts. You can have your own opinion, but you cannot invent your fact. So what I see coming out of this is that for 5 months, like I said earlier, we saw only one man standing up as an opposition to the WI administration, where we saw Boykai, who supposed to be the older person in the room. Let me tell you something. What really hurt me through all this thing was the fact that people could not put their personal ego aside and think about the state for once. It's like a crazy man running out and snatch your towel, that old addict in Liberia, and then you run out as a crazy man. If Boykai was truly the grown man in the room, this thing wouldn't have escalated to where it is at right now. Because this guy tried to lie. This guy tried to bully a man. And that is the Liberian way. And when you listen to it, this guy had a nefarious intention and all the different adjectives they use to describe Cummings and fingering and the Costa of the world and the George Lobo of the world on numerous times on the show, tried to castigate this guy, use all kinds of something because his only crime was being one of the cleanest politicians in Liberia history that we have seen, have no ties to the war, have no history of corruption, unlike the Boykai that we have a long 43 some year, without even want to go there, and the rest of them. So the only thing here is they reverted to this old strategy.
So, Mr. Fadiga, let's talk about. Oh, we lost him.
The system is started with him renting, so I'm glad that hopefully he comes back.
Don't even start, Mr. Lobo. Let me go to Mr. Gonglo. Mr. Gonglo, you don't want to talk for the Gonglo team. I understand that, but people were looking at the opposition to say, well, we need to make Mr. Weah one-term president, and they trusted the collaboration of these constituent parties. To me, it failed them. They're no longer together. They saw what happened when they were together, and Darius Dillon won bigly. That's normal. Does that shift attention to the Mr. Gonglo has the X factor here?
Well, I like I like other speakers to speak to that. I don't speak for Councillor Gonglo. I'm not an
No, you
official.
give my time back.
Yeah. Let's
I'm not an official of the Liberian People's Party. I'm not. In fact, I'm not a member of Team Gonglo. So, but
I agree.
I can actually just express my own opinion on this. I think I made a point before, and I can repeat myself on this. The bigger question, and I think the failure of the collective, and I keep saying collective failure, not pointing finger at any political leader. The collective failure of the CPP was basically that they failed to do just the basic thing that if any of them were president today, they would have made sure you read all the letters.
Yeah, but why? Why was that?
No, and I think the focus more so on the leadership question, which they knew clearly they didn't have the formula how to settle that. And I think they settled on a democratic process, even though it was not clearly stated in the document. Because I remember in one conversation, I'm not going to call a political name, a political leader name. I remember this political leader was telling Ure, don't drop your ambition. Everybody in the CPP who represent political institutions should stick to their ambition. Let's go and settle it, which was a good approach, So, I mean, from the get-go, all of them, they agreed that they were going to go to a convention where a winner will emerge, okay? Yeah. And like I think Adma said earlier, that there's one leader who has been vice president. It was clear from the get-go that he was not going to be vice president to any of even if the other three had said, hey, we're going to contest for the presidency. Clearly, he was not anticipating that he would be a vice president to them, because it means there's no movement up the ladder for him, So I think that was a misstep there from the beginning. They just need to recognize and say, hey, there's something that is just a giving, it's constant, that it must change. But I think they trusted, I mean, they probably didn't do, I would say, they didn't do a good job on this particular one. They probably could have just seized on that and said, look, there's one thing that is giving. He's not going to be another vice president for another 6 years. They would have said that from the beginning. The fact they didn't do that, I think, was a collective failure. At all levels, even at the technical level, the technicians could not pick that out and point it out to their leaders and say, "Look,
why was that important, Mr. Gonglo? No, why was that important? If they could go there and do a primary and select who they think was the better candidate?
So you saw the primary idea had its own consequence. You saw block voting suggestion came up, was up the window, and I mean, I don't know whether it was written or people just threw they bounce the idea out there on the public. But we had block voting as well. Okay, I'm not in the CPP. I was never there, so
he was not there.
Yeah. So
what do you think is the way forward for these constituent?
So for me, I think, let me answer the question. Your first question. The issue is, I think the voters will look at, because when we have many people on the ballot in 2023, because political parties because of the fallout from the CPP lack of trust, you're going to have more political parties on the ballot. It will actually depend on political messaging by either candidate to say, hey, I am the guy. If I had been there, I probably would have kept this unity. The other people damaged. Other people say, hey, I was there. I was making sure to correct this thing here. The other guy who wants to be your leader, he just wanted to spoil everything. So it will depend on how they pivot to the voter, how they sell themselves to the voter. But I think the larger question is, in my mind, I have no clear doubt in my mind that the tide is against President Weah. I don't care what Weah does. He's going to be a one-time president. I mean, I know they're going to throw millions of dollars out there because they stole in a lot of money, but I don't think the voters are going, because like all over the world, urban communities tend to not be friendly with ruling party. Very few instances, they will tend to be, So if you look around Liberia is increasingly becoming an urban nation. Urbanization is increasing. People are leaving the villages. That's why even our food production is low. They are moving to Gando, they are moving to Banga, they are moving to Seglipi, they are moving to Zwedru, Facetan. Liberia is increasingly becoming an urban nation, okay? And that rate of urbanization, and so many, even you go to Gando today, you talk about slums, those are things. I went to school in Gando, was never there, okay? So, and those people who come to the city, they come in social jobs, in social opportunities, so they can take by the goodies back to their villages, right? And it's not there because is not creating an environment. So he's actually his failure is creating hostile voting population against in Ganto, in Banga, in Tomabird. You name it. So I think the ties are against Weah. He has lost Monrovia. He's not going to get Monrovia. Monrovia has historically never been for the ruling party, So Salif tried, she failed. It was clear. So, and Weah has tried, he has failed. So I think Weah is not going to make it ready. It just depends on how the opposition could make the job a bit easier for him. Not that he will win, but at least he could find himself in the second round. But if there is a collective unity in the opposition, we will actually not even go to second round.
Thank you. Mr. Al-Fadiga, you have 1 minute to just conclude on what is the ANC or these political parties going to do going forward?
I think they will form a new merger. Now that I think Capsel, I don't know whether he's coming back. I think Capsel is gone. I think he's gone for good. Until some miracle happens, I don't see him coming back. When you look at the political landscape, my good friend and brother, Mr. Gonglo over there, Tiawan is a good candidate. I don't think he has the funding and some other things that he lacking there. But somehow we'll all find ourselves around the second round and a good merger. I think Cummings just need to make his case now that he's clearly seems to be in the front end of the opposition. He just need to make a case and keep pushing forward. And if he can get to the second round, whoever gets to the second round with George Weah will most likely be the president of Liberia. So I have not given up on the opposition. Sometimes when people have problems, they have a way of solving themselves. So people will unite when that right time comes on one thing, that we cannot allow this kakistocracy to continue for another 6 years. We cannot allow ineptitude to flourish for another 6 years. Something has to change, and I think that is a team that is very strong, and it will unite the opposition again when push comes to shove. So I'm still hopeful in the opposition. I still think that there are other good, level-headed opposition leader out there that are willing to find to align themselves with like-minded people than the grand old party, unity party, that nowhere in the history of Liberia we have seen a party leave from power and come back. And Joseph Boakai doesn't even have the team. He lost. Incumbent win election. He lost. He was defeated by George Weah. One more, it's going to be history, and for the Unity Party to even win an election. I think the Unity Party or the CPP provided another pedestal for the Unity Party, and I think it resuscitated the Unity Party. When they felt that they didn't need it anymore, they thought that they could leave. But we'll see that what will happen in 2023.
Thank you. Mr. Salif, I see you smiling there. Clearly, you see for Mr. Fadiga is the ANC, Mr. Lobo is the Unity.
No,
Party.
I'm not ANC. I'm just.
I mean, the ANC is the one that is, going to, be there with George Weah probably. Okay, for Mr. Gonglo, he's a brilliant guy, playing it safe, doesn't want to step on any toes. I get that, Mr. Gonglo. Mr. Salif, what's your take? How this thing playing out? Where you think we go from here with these political parties? Oh, you unmute yourself, please.
So I apologize. If the sample we can take away, is what Fadiga and Lobo are displaying here. And that's the irony. You hear Hassan says, oh, well, you know, it will happen. They will sort themselves out. Yeah, and then they bash each other right in front of us before he ends the sentence.
Two of them can even come together and they want
to come together and agree, right, on the civil, you know, on a civil discussion. Before I get to what I see the way forward, there was one impact I think is very important we didn't talk about, the NEC, the National Elections Commission. I believe that NEC has to be reformed. I mean, they can't afford to be making all kinds of technical mistakes, all kinds of errors that the Supreme Court will have to basically instruct them or strike them down like that. Because, you know, the elections are drivers of conflict, particularly in fragile contexts like ours. And so I will leave it at that. I think the National Election Commission has a lot of work to do, a lot of reorganizing to do. I hope they get funded, and I hope they really reconstitute it in a way that they can be fair and objective and technically correct. In terms of the way forward, you know, I've said to Mr. Cummins' people that from my observation, when I see his aides and his spokespeople appear on media platforms the way and with all due respect, but they can be very vitriolic. They can have this chip on their shoulders, like, you know, as though, how dare you not see that Cummins is the best person for Liberia? He's so educated. He has so much corporate experience. He has the best team. Can't you see? Something must be wrong with you or your education to not be able to see. I think that has made them to position themselves and sell Mr. Cummins as this guy who is not corrupt. That in fact, they have a tagline that says integrity something, right? That may be good. It may not have a corruption history or participate in the war, any of that. We have a lot of Liberians who have clean records like that. However, you come to a context like Liberia, you have to understand the country. You have to understand the culture of the people. You have to understand the political culture, the political economy of a country that you want to run, and therefore fashion your message accordingly, right? For example, you cannot sell this guy as the educated elite person, and then you have all Fadiga and all the educated elite guys in America and other places. You enter the room in Banga or someplace, with all due respect to my own people, 80% of the people in the room haven't gotten an airplane. They don't have the degrees you all have in all of that. So if, in a way, you're talking down on them. To me, that tells me you're not understanding the population. You're not understanding. Let me finish. Please, let me just, you know, don't disrupt my train of thought before I lose it, right? That's the Cummins side. I think if they can pivot, if they can really realign that message that this guy has new ideas, he has better approaches to how he thinks he sees Liberia's problem, and here's what he can do or he will do. That is the better message to me. That is the better narrative that you can then create all kinds of stump speeches around to sell your candidate and then put this garb down. Because you're not in office yet and then you behave like that. It scares us that when these people get there, they'll be very arrogant. They'll be screaming, yelling, and screaming. They already scream at us on these platforms. That's one side. So given that, I don't see Cummins easily coming to align with another major political party that will you know, have ambition to say want to be vice presidential or even a lead ticket, clearly, because that's not possible. So what I see is I think they will do the sort of CDC type alliance going forward to say clearly anyone who wants to join the Unity Party, Grand Alliance, whatever that is, the top of the ticket is non-negotiable. Bam. That is it. You're not going to, if you want to join, you can join. We can talk about other possibilities. Same thing with ANC. The top of the ticket is non-negotiable. We know we want to work with you. Who knows which party? You say Cassell is not coming back. If Cassell's party, that's the problem I have with Liberian parties. They're not no institutionalism, right? It's all about the politicians and very individualistic. And so it's sad that Cassell's people don't have a sway in this. But I find it very difficult to see how any of these parties that have been wrangling and fighting each other can come together before the second round. I keep saying the second round is really where horse trading will happen, negotiation will happen, and people, whether you like the enemy or not, you make bad fellows together. They say politics makes all kinds of bad fellows. You know, we're seeing again Amadou Barrow and Yahya Jammeh. We're seeing Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta in Kenya. We see all kinds of people who were at each other's throat. In the end, they had to come together somehow. So I'm hoping that will happen during the second round, particularly if one of them is at the top and leading President Weah. And so that it's clear that this president will eventually become president if they can galvanize around that person. That's where I see an alliance possible.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Prince Moba in Monrovia. And Prince, you can also announce the call so we can have our folks in Liberia participating. If you have any questions or comments, and please also announce the local line so we can have callers from Liberia.
Dennis, I also wanted to make a quick comment though. Is Prince back online?
Yeah, Prince is on the phone. Prince, can you hear me? All right.
Can you hear me too?
Yes, you are not clear.
Okay.
All right. So let me go to first. Let me go to you, Gonglo, and then Fadiga.
I just want to make a quick comment in the passing. Based on what Fadiga said, he said Councillor Gonglo doesn't have money. I just wanted to say this in passing about that. You know, I think money is essential in any political campaign, but it doesn't answer many questions also on leadership questions. And I mean, Liberian recent history, if you look at Vanish Sherman in 2005, I mean, because in Liberia, we basically don't file our financial activities at the end of the election with NEG, even though it's in the law. NEG has not been able to enforce that. But just by cursory look at the display of things that Vanish Sherman last day or Kuta, you know, his coalition that built there, it showed that he spent the most money in 2005 and he did not win. Okay. In 2005, I was supporting Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. I returned home and I was part of her campaign. I know many instances she didn't have money. We were even hearing rumors of her taking retirement money from either UN to put into her campaign as well. She bear struggle. I mean, that's true. I think she has even made reference to that. Okay. So money does not answer all of the question. There are things that Councillor Gonglo has to his advantage that many other politicians don't have, because he had a history of selflessness, interacting and defending Liberians, in the trenches. He's been the guy who has given his life, even almost to the point of his death, for journalists, for ordinary people. That, hey, I will take the bullet for you as long as I need to defend what the Constitution guarantees for you. I will do that. In fact, he's giving pro bono service to the journalists, that any journalist arrested in Liberia for expression of the press, free press, I will defend you. So I think he got a lot. I don't want to say some things. He's currently in the US. There are places he has gone to hold meeting now that politicians, I know for a fact, have hired lobbyists to lobby for them to meet those kinds of people. That he's going to those places and those are opening for him without paying the dime. I mean, it speaks to his character.
Thank you.
All the things. So I think watch out for that. He may just ask you.
Thank you. Hold on. I'll go to Fadiga first for his 1 minute.
Mr. Gonglo, I won't disagree with you that your brother is a fine Liberian. His record is impeccable. I'm not going to argue with that. But I'm also a realist. I know that in order to win an election, you need money, you need funding. And I'm just being realistic. No, I'm not trying to diminish a candidacy or questioning his integrity. I think we'll make a perfect president. But I'm also being realistic that in order to win an election, you do need funding, and I haven't seen that yet. So that's where I went with the something. As far as
wait until he becomes a standard bearer. Then you
we'll see that. But the field is open. We also have some other good candidates there. And Mr. Sirleaf says something that really had me in awe. He said the ANC folks move with a chip on the shoulder. Look, Mr. Salif, doing the right thing is not a white man thing. It's not an elitist thing. It is just the right thing. Having integrity, having certain standard, especially having lived in a country, navigating to all the corporate America and going to Liberia and doing something different. I mean, it's a shame. We see that is very common. It's a common trend. So I don't know how this will affect the old man in Bokongide or the old man in Kalahun or some district in Liberia in Bambaso County. I don't know how they will see that as being elitist. It is a fact. Comey has proven that he's a fine Liberian. Until you can prove it otherwise and show me that other side of Comey that we haven't seen before, I take what we have seen, read, and follow this man. It could have been any other Liberian. I would say the same thing for him. So I don't see this to be a reason why anyone would look down or be skeptical of him. Because doing the right thing is not a Caucasian thing. Oh, you want to allow women? You want to? No, it is just the right thing, and we, a Liberian, should embrace it. It should be something that we should frown on to look at people as being an elitist.
I didn't say that.
I think Ahmed was talking about the way you say your writing.
I did not. I know so much. I know better to say what you are attributing to me, Mr. Fadiga.
No, but that's how it comes out. That's how it comes out.
I can restate what I said, and I think people are listening. People heard what I'm saying. Listen, I have seen Mr. Cummins may be a very fine Liberian.
Mr. Salif, you don't have to repeat yourself for the man who didn't understand what you said. That's not
hold on, Mr. Lobo.
So I got all right to understand whatever way I want to understand it. I'm an educated person.
Right.
In fact, George, I have a master's degree. You still fighting for your bachelor's degree.
It doesn't matter.
So we can't even go to academics. Mr.
Salif, don't go there.
Yeah, I'm
No,
not.
but let's know.
Let's not go there.
I think talking over one another doesn't help us, right? Let's respect each other.
Mr. Salim, let me read a comment here that I want us to look at. This comment came from Mr. Anthony V. Kessley. He said, has it been verified whether the team of CPP lawyers who work on the framework document did come across the unconstitutional clause and raised no alarm, but went on to pass on? Or was that clause not in the framework document when they concluded their review? So has any one of you heard I think these lawyers too, I personally felt that they did a very poor job when they asked them, look at it, and they say, I will hand that inside because it's political. So, Mr. Lobo, do you know anything about that?
So, since I have the CPB investigative report, it speaks specifically, and I write the page right here. Let me read what it says on that. Listen to what it says.
No, Josh. Hold on. Let me.
Hold on.
You need to be cautious here, so that we'll misinform the public. There were two on the framework document. The lawyers refused to go public. Second, there was a separate internal investigative panel constituted, I think, by Senator Yomli Kanga. And I hope it's not a report you.
That's the one you want to report.
First and
Hold on, Mr. Gonglo. Mr. Lobo, that's the report, right?
Yes, Mr. Jah, hold on one second.
Hold on, read the line you're talking about.
No, Mr. Jah, before I even read, let me say something here real quick.
Mr. Lobo, just read that line.
Mr. Jah, can I just speak, sir?
Do you have 1 minute?
No. Other people have spoken. When I want to speak, you can't keep interrupting me.
No. I'm saying you wanted to read a line. I want you to go ahead and read that.
I was about to speak. You jumped and brought up a post. So I said, the question asks about the lawyers. So I said, okay, Mr. Jah, I do have the investigative report.
So I said, go ahead and read it.
Yeah, but before I read, Mr. Gonglo raised a point. I think let's inform the public. Mr. Gonglo said it was the committee constituted by Senator Lawrence. I wanted to make it very clear that it was not Senator Lawrence. Don't
quote me wrong. I'm saying make it clear whether it is a lawyer's report.
Mr. Gonglo, can I?
No, Mr.
When you people speak, I don't interrupt. When I'm speaking, let me finish.
Mr. Lobo, can you read this? Can you read it so we can move on?
But what am I reading? What do you know I'm reading?
We have 15 minutes for this show.
What do you know I'm reading, Mr. Jah?
All right. let me move on to if you can't read it, then we can move on. You
No,
want
but
to read
what am I
something?
reading? I just can't read to the public. I need to tell the people what I'm reading and where I'm reading
got
it
it.
from.
I got it. Go ahead and read what you
Okay,
need to
so
read.
let me say this again. The report that I have is a report from the 4 political parties. It was signed by the ALP, UP, and the LP. So here's what they say on that question that was asked. They said in the lawyer's review note, issue number 5, it is clearly stated that they, the lawyer, drafted a letter seeking the national election to confirm its understanding of the election law and regulations on the point in time wherein the member party of a collaboration will not be allowed to fee candidates in an election while the agreement is still valid. There is no available document to prove if the draft letter by the lawyers was sent to NEC, response made by the NEC. What is the report establishing? Mr. Cummings and the ANC have been lying that it was the lawyers put it there. It is the lawyers that put it there. Again, here's one thing I wanted to say before I move on. When I said Dennis cannot speak, when we come to this platform and issues are raised, I think we should be able to talk to this, to speak on this issue. So what was I trying to say? Mr. Fadiga made some claims here about the Unity Party. Fine. On the issue of this, Mr. Jai, here's one more point I wanted to just bring to Fadiga's attention. You keep talking about Mr. Cummings as a clean man. The Liberian people know this Cummings you talk about, who was at the Ganta Declaration in 2017. It is this very Cummings. He was the first to form collaboration with Bernard Ayue, with Prince Johnson, with the current George Weah. What are you speaking of? So when you come to this platform and say that you know the reason why Liberians see the ANC people as being deceptive is because they are not honest. How can you people tell us now that him coming to a collaboration with Yure is a criminal? You didn't see him live Yure here in Ganta?
Mr. Lobo,
can I just have 3 seconds? 3 seconds.
And that's what I thought. That's what I was trying to avoid.
It's unfair to the rest of us, Dennis. So we come on this platform to help to contribute. But when the political aides are here and the political activists are here and they're just going vitriolic at each other, and it's disrespectful to the audience and to other panelists who are not particularly attached to any party.
Thank you. Let me go to Morovia. Prince.
Yes, sir. Can you get me clear now, right?
It's trying. Can you guys get Prince?
A little bit.
All right, go ahead, Prince.
All right, so I don't think I have a question. Just one question there, and as a number. I mean, to all the parents on those are supporting the ANC and the UP. Do you see trust on the part of Liberian to give the state power if you took almost 2 years to be in court on something that you could just solve among yourself internally and move ahead, since the fact you had the mind to unseat the Weah government to give the Liberian people a better Liberian? Do you see Liberian trusting you again as an opposition or as opposition political parties to give the state power? Say you couldn't solve something that would even trust by the court. You couldn't solve it, you had to go to the Supreme Court. I mean, do you see that confidence in Liberians?
Thank you. And let me start with Mr. Lobo on this one. In fact, Mr. Bwaka is on record saying you can't give a man's job to a boy. But we saw Mr. Bwaka and the rest of the CPP members going to the boys' court. Where the Prince is asking is, do you think the Liberian people will trust members or former members of the CPP?
Absolutely, Mr. Jai. And here's why. I think we've been correct all along. The Unity Party made it very clear why we left the CPP. We said we left the CPP because an investigation was conducted which established that the CPP framework document was altered. And there were other factors which we stated. And that is why we left. Mr. Cummings and Musa Ability went to NEC to stop us. I think every Liberian now know that the Unity Party claim at NEC We were correct, and that is why the unconstitutional clause for which Mr. Cummings and Belete wanted to use to deprive the people of Lofa from electing a senator, they know now who was telling the truth. And on the basis of that, not only that, Mr. Jah, here's one thing the Liberian people will not forget. The Liberian people know the party called UP. They know the country the Unity Party inherited in 2006. They have not forgotten. Ambassador Boakai, his character, his personal record speaks for itself. This is a man, just public education today, to many of you Liberians. Ambassador Boakai have been in public service for 25 years, now 40, now 42. 25 years, 0 allegations proving of corruption on his record. So on the basis of that, Mr. Jah, I think the Liberian people will go for the man they know and they trust Ambassador Boakai because he has lived the talk, he has walked the talk, he has demonstrated integrity across every sector he has served. And on the basis of that, we do know they will trust it. So
Thank you, Mr. Quickly, based on even what you read, the lawyers that were tasked to look at the framework document said, hey, they were seeking the advice from NEC to see whether that clause is constitutional, right? They wanted to ask NEC, hey, is this clause, it's like, a lawyer going to ask NEC to say whether this clause is constitutional. To me, that didn't make any sense. What's your take?
Because you know what, I didn't finish. There's a last sentence.
No, I know this. I know their story.
Okay, so let me tell you why, Dennis.
NEC to say, please advise us if this clause is supposed to be there.
Dennis, the very first thing, the reason why you see I tend not to buy into the ANC's argument about the CPP framework and the lawyers. Let me say this to you.
No, I just asked a question on that clause.
Dennis, here's how I'm answering the question. When you give a legal document to a lawyer to review for you, what are you asking him to make changes? That does not mean that document is legal until you, who ask him, sign that document. Whatever the lawyer put in there, it does not constitute that document being legal. So the reason why I chose not to answer and argue on that, for me, lawyers should know that, Mr. Jah. If you're preparing a legal document of such a kind, I find it disappointing and troubling for the type of professional lawyers we have in our country, because I don't think that's something they should have gone to NEC to go seek clarification. Because if we're hiring you or if we're seeking advice from you and you're a lawyer, it's like me taking my daughter to the hospital, say she's sick, and the doctor is telling me, hold on 1 second, I have to go back to go consult the medical school I went to. Then it scares me. So for me, like I said, that is my only concern on it. It was scary. It should not happen. I thought lawyers should have known the best about it. That's what I would say to that point.
Mr. Fadiga, should the Liberian people, according to Prince, trust members or former members of the CPP if they can't even resolve these little issues among them? They have to go to the ex-husband and ask, what's up with the woman?
Well, the question normally on a normal square, I would just press to kind of question on, because I don't think this is intended to be a serious question, honestly, because if you were, this 2022 would be a referendum on George Weah bad leadership for the last 6 years. It's also going to be a referendum of a government that was in power for 12 years. It's clear what's going to be at stake 2023. We had a vice president that was in power for 12 years and himself acknowledged that his corner opportunities. The Liberian people can remember this is not ancient time. There's something that happened just less than 6 years ago. We have seen what the Unity Party can do. This Unity Party, Workers' Unity Party, is not Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Unity Party. That's why they went and lost. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf do win election. If Ellen were on the battle again, I'm sure she would have defeated George Weah easily. So it is clear. So the Liberian people, when they go to the polls come 2023, they're not going to be answering what other people told me. Look, internal wrangling is normal. During the process, these people are still trying to get together. They have to fight. There will be disagreement and something. At the end of the day, this election will boil down to the meat and bread and butter issues. Are you okay? Have your life changed? Is the proper agenda working? Did it work for you? Did all those different teams change for hope and all those nonsense that they said, have it worked for you?
If the answer is no, who will they turn to? They go to the
opposition. To those people that are in line.
Right, look, they go to the opposition. All they see is internal wrangling. They can't even solve anything. They are fighting. They are in court. You know,
that's how it seems right now. That's how it seems right now. But I still have faith in the opposition. I still have faith that what is dividing us is pale as compared to what will unite the opposition in the end. So even the boycott and the communists, I see them coming together. I see people coming together for the common good of Liberia. But before I leave mine, say something, I just want to say one thing to all these reading of the framework document. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know why people even bothering with this thing, with this whole document, temporary, footprint document, something. That case is over. That case is over. A few weeks ago, we had a forensic document examiner that examined those documents. They have sealed the fate of that thing, and we see that the domino effect is being felt in the Supreme Court, and the case being dropped. So I don't know why George still holding on.
For me, Mr. Fadiga, that case is a moot case now. It's dropped because the Supreme Court has done with it. Prince, do we have
so I don't know why people still holding on something when the case is done with.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if we can get a caller from Monrovia. We have like 10 minutes to go. Go ahead.
Let me announce the number 077709595 8. Let's use that as our number 077709595 8. 077709595 8. You can also call 077015051 077015051. There's the call 077709595 8. Those are the numbers to call 077095958 or 077701051. Those are the two numbers you can call to be a part of the program. On the program tonight here at Pram FM 105.5 FM. Once again, the numbers are 077709595 8, 077709595 8, or 077701051. Go ahead.
Thank you. You got a caller, Prince?
No call now, no call.
All right. A few comments here. This one from Michael Patmore, who is a supporter of Mr. Cummings. If the lawyers mentioned the exit phrase and met with all political leaders to give their report, then how come Ure, JNB, and Yombly Kanga Lawrence are saying they didn't know about this clause? Franklin Vese, Councillor Tiawan Gonglo is the best we have in the coming election. He's the aspirant who has said and done what no other aspirant has said or done. This one is a long one. The first phase of the opposition against their own have ended with Mr. Cummings still standing as the only alternative. The intention or plans by the government was to use people within to harass, disrespect Mr. Cummings. They came up with lies after 6 months. Thank God for a far-sighted leader who knows his character, and on and on and on. All right, friends, if we don't have another, we would not be taking calls from Monrovia as from here as our time is far spent. The time here is far spent. So let me go around the room now for your closing comments. If we don't get a call, then we can close on this one. Let me start with Mr. Gonglo.
All right. So thank you. It's been a pleasure sharing the panel with George Lobo and Ahmed and Fadiga for the first time. But let me just close on this. You know, Liberia has a unique history, even though it's not a history that one can be proud of. We're going to have election in 2023. There will be a winner. But I just want to sound out this caveat. We may end up with a winner that may not necessarily be prepared to address the field effect of Joshua May's rule. We've seen that, and the examples are many. Joshua is one classic example. He won an election, but he was unprepared for the leadership.
Can we get to the one caller?
All right, hold on. Let's take one caller from Liberia. Go ahead.
Hello? Yeah, hello? Hello? Yeah, hello? Sorry, I don't know. Can I get it?
Go ahead. No way. Prince, we can hear anything.
Hello, I'm getting you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Brown.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is Brown Tapin, calling from Captain Hill, Monrovia. Yeah, let me thank you guys. I've been following, and most of your analysis is to point. But you know, the problem, most of the leadership of the collaborating political party will be facing with is to be the matter of trust and reliance. Because when they started the whole process of collaboration, they aroused the emotion of the Liberian people, and said, though, who may not be supporter of this government. And then they see them as an options. Only to know that after 2 or 3 years, the whole CPP collapsed, and it did not collapse outside the CPP, is within the CPP. So what will be the reliance, even for now that the Supreme Court had decided the free white document, especially the clause that they were holding Mr. Comey in the court. And obviously, the fact that the Supreme Court has spoken on a court that is unconstitutional, then it's useless to even prosecute Comey any longer. What the thing that the black people will still be able to have confidence in these people after they are raised their emotions and their opportunity that they see in there as a future after this government, or maybe in the 2023, you know, if need be to elect them and replace their government, and only to know that within themselves they were able to collapse and they were even going to work primary among themselves. Thank you. Right now, for me, as I see it, that they will be struggling with rebuilding image problem. Thank you. And that will be very, very serious problem, especially for those that are in the rural area, that most of the radio stations and other internet systems cannot reach. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. They're going to answer the question. Dennis, you got a call up there, right?
Yes.
All right. So I think again, answer the question that is being asked.
Okay, and to add to that, Florence Kinsley said, you all know the reason why the CPP did not hold together. You are denying the root cause. The CDC used Musa Hassan Bilete to destroy the CPP, and Comey thought that Bilete was doing it in his favor, but all that is being put behind us now. Let every party move on. So you heard the caller. You heard the caller, and George and let me this Mr. Salif. You heard the caller.
The caller.
I'm not hearing you.
You're not hearing me? I'm on. Dennis, do you all hear me?
Yeah.
Dennis, I'm not hearing you.
It must be your system, Mr. Fadiga. Everybody else is hearing me.
Mr. Fadiga, what you need to do is, anyway, you will not hear me.
The caller was spot on. I mean, it boils down to integrity, because I said earlier on, the acrimonious nature, the way it was vitriolic, and
Dennis, you're kind of breaking up.
Such bad blood.
Go ahead, Mr. Salif.
Yeah, because of the way they've been fighting.
I'm hearing you a little bit now. You're kind of in and out.
Is there a way, Dennis, to decommission Mr. Fadiga and bring him back? Okay. So my point is, the callers, sort of those, if I can summarize sort of what I understood from that and from the comment on the from that person here, is that okay? So listen, let's move on. However, to move on, the opposition parties that were in the CPP, the constituent parties that have now, all for all intent and purposes, have gone in their separate ways. They have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of image building work to do. That's where they have to go out in the countryside, sell your message to the Liberian people, win hearts and minds. And that's really what it's about, right? The people say bread and butter issues what impact the lives of families. And it's not just wrangling and fighting and going to court and distrusting each other and all the machinations and the shenanigans. I think that has not helped anybody. Because a country such as ours, it has monumental problems, development problems, basic needs and services, serious governance problems that Liberia has. And here are people who have put themselves forward that they want to be our leaders and they can't agree among themselves and they're fighting like this, So let's move on. But moving on, I think you have a lot of work to do in order to regain people's trust again.
Thank you. Prince,
Dennis, can I say something to that question? Because, we are, Mr. Salif is not part of the party. Can I respond to that? Yeah. Mr. Salif, let me say this to you, and I disagree with you and so many people who've expressed this. The fact that an alliance was formed, and for whatever reason, they separated, I don't see that as a problem. Here's what I would say to you at the end of the day. Every single political party contested before, and the Liberian people know the candidates, and these candidates will make their case. For whatever reason, we came together. People continue to make it seem like the CPP fell apart because people just wanted to. We've come to realize why they fell apart. There were accusations of an unconstitutional clause being put into the framework document. Now, how could we have been able to prove that this clause was inserted in the document was unconstitutional? Could we have just stayed outside arguing among ourselves? What should we have done? We went to the law. We went to National Elections Commission, who ruled in an unconstitutional matter. So where we went to the court. I think it's a good thing. We have to teach Liberians that when there is a problem, you go to the court. And I will say this to you,
Mr. Lobo, let me interject. It seems to me the Liberian people are talking now because we have done.
Let me speak to the caller.
You're finished. They are saying that what you did, not coming together, it frustrates them, it makes them to feel bad about it. You are saying no, it has not caused any problem. You are still, because you came together for a purpose and you have disintegrated and you say there's no impact whatsoever. Go ahead.
Dennis, the reason why I want you to understand is that there's another alliance called the Rainbow Alliance with 11 political parties. So let me just make this very clear to you. There will still be alliances formed. There might be different collaborations. We don't know, especially elections in Liberia, where people form parties 2-3 months before election to contest. Again, I am not losing hope. Here's what I do know. At the end of the day, what should be important to every single Liberian? You need to ask yourself, is my life better? Because the CDC promised you that we were going to come to improve your life. We will build hospitals that your children can go to abroad. We will create jobs. We'll lift 1.5 million people out of poverty. We will fight corruption. Our government will be pro-poor. We'll invest in the poor people. Have that happen today. And I want you Liberians, listen, if you will get distracted by whatever is happening with the CPP, and for that reason, even though for the last 6 years, you've not had a job, basic commodity prices are skyrocketing, and you decide that, you know what, oh, I can't go vote, oh, I can't make a decision, then this is an opportunity you will have to change your life. And I will say this again, Mr. Job, the Liberian people will vote in 2023. They will send a message. They will vote for the candidate they trust. I believe my candidate has the requisite credentials, has shown to be trustworthy, has the integrity, and that is why we are counting on Ambassador Joseph Nyuma Bwaka will be elected come 2023. And that's all I can tell you, Mr. Jack.
Thank you. Mr. Gonglo, I think that's the problem, right? Is the sheep is like your friend hurt your feeling and still they cannot admit that something happened. From what Mr. Lobo is saying is what we did, even though we raised their hope, and the CPP was the hope of many Liberians who thought that the George Weah government was not working well for them. So the question is, your life better now than then? I mean, the answer will be, for most people, from what I'm seeing, will be no. But who's the alternative? And that's why they were looking at CPP, and CPP has failed them. Don't you think?
No. Clearly, I don't know. Mr. Lobo and Mr. Fadiga, I understand Fadiga is not ANC person, but you just a talk show host. I hope I'm correct on that. But the truth is, ANC and the United Party people, the issue of the dissolution or the challenge that has been posed to the CPP today, this issue is going to follow ANC and the UP up to 2023 October. Except they come together. If they don't come together, their supporters will continue to fight each other on the framework document, even though it's a settled issue in the Supreme Court, but it's not a settled issue politically. So they're going to continue to fight on this. And that will be bad for the public, honestly. The surrogates, the talk show hosts are going to continue to play on this issue against each other. And unfortunately, no one controls that because they have that platform. They choose what issue they want to talk about, and they're going to talk about it, But we should not overlook that. It was actually disappointing because I got a lot of friends in the CDC too. I mean, at the highest level, I may say, because I've been teaching in Liberia all through my life. Tottenham High, UL, Stella Maris, UMU, Collington Graduate School, you just name it. I used to run tutorials classes to prepare students to take the university entrance. So I got wealth of friends all over. They fear the CPP when they lost Maserati. And one of their singular most objective was to dismantle the CPP. And they did it successfully. That I will give them the credit. It was a surgical operation on behalf of from the perspective of the CP, from the CDC. It was a surgical operation for them. They did it successfully. I mean, I give those guys credit for that. And you're now going to have these two institutions surrogate fighting each other until 2023.
Right. And we are planning a show right here on Focus on Liberia entitled The Memorial Service of the CPP. You don't want to miss it.
And you're going to continue the narrative too. So that's exactly what I'm talking about.
CPP will have to rest in peace. So let's wrap this up now. I know time is fast spent. So Mr. Gonglo, you started, so you end your closing comment.
Yes, I was just basically trying to say that, the unfortunate thing in Liberia, for every election, we focus on winning, which is not a bad thing. But I think our institution, like Anna said earlier, would not focus on building institution. We focus more on promoting individual ambition. And that is sad. And the end result of that is we have more people winning who are not prepared to do the job, and the challenge of governance remains. In the legislature, there are many people who have won in the legislature since 2006. The inability of the legislature to play its constitutional role in a democratic society remains because we focus on winning, we focus on electing people who are not basically grounded in institution. They come there as individual. Oh, I'm George Lobo. You led me. I'm going to build toilet for you. I'm going to give scholarship to your children. Whether they're taking the government money, allocating it to themselves, which obviously do, and then come and give your kids scholarship and say, I, George Lobo, did this, right? So we focus on that. It's sad. So political parties have not been able to really put a legislative agenda where they will get to the people and say, these are the kind of people we want in the legislature. These are the kind of quality we want. So they will focus on winning. So they look for a popular person in the local municipality and say, hey, if George Lobo is popular in Foya, let's put George Lobo on the ticket so we can win the vote. And now you end up with a winner who is unprepared. And it's a classic example. The way our legislative process has been for the last 18 years is a classic example. And I think going towards 2023, I hope political parties and political leaders will take a step back and say, look, as a president, I can change this country. Can I have a team? Can my political party, can my institution, can we begin to develop cadres of committed people who are prepared to work for the Liberian people? Other than that, we're going to be in the same state after 2023. There will still be the issue because even some of the things I'm hearing as a political analyst, some of the things I'm hearing that political parties are come together. This one is non-negotiable. We can negotiate the other thing. Okay, we can send. We'll make will give ministerial job to those other political parties. This is bad. When people begin to negotiate like that, it's like war and fashion time, you know.
Yeah.
And you end up having unprepared people in the different ministry because, hey, I gave my support, you know. And I hope we'll find a different way to do it. I'm not
Thank you.
to be expert on this, but I think it's a bad thing for Liberia. We have to find to do it differently. You know?
Thank you. I will go to Al for his closing comment, but let me read this comment that was sent to me by Dr. Abdullah Dukle. He said, the whole episode, meaning the CPP infighting, I put that there because I asked him, was an academic exercise for the political class. Partisans will support their candidate. The real danger is the parties fighting each other. Mr. Fadiga, your closing comment, sir. Mr. Fadiga, can you hear me?
My closing comment. What I would have to say here is what I find discouraging. I think it was Mr. Ganglo that said that he blamed all the politicians. I think there was a lack of leadership on each one of the politicians from every side of the aisle. I think what they made the Congo police to say more hay out of mountain. I think the blue wire was just simple that they could have settled.
We have some issue there. Let me go to George while we struggle to get Mr. Fadiga back. Mr. Lobo, you're closing.
Mr. Jai, I want to thank you. I want to thank Mr. Gonglo. This is the first time. And let me say, Prof, in a special way, thank you very much for your contribution to the country. That is the best way you can give back, especially impacting knowledge into the minds, into molding the minds of our brothers and sisters. I want to say I'm extremely grateful. I've never met you before, at least, but this is the first time. And to Mr. Ahmed Sharif, go ahead.
Let George just continue.
George, continue.
Yeah, because once you were speaking, so I wanted to stop.
You want me to go ahead? Yeah. Sorry, the network. So what I was saying. All right, yeah, let me get this point and Ali. So what I was saying is that what we saw here, like what Mr. Gonglu said, it was always in the circuit of all those four political parties that this merger was for better or worse to death do us part. Until the Unity Party found out that they wouldn't be there for the death to us part when they found out that there was slim chance of Boyka coming up victorious. And then they created this halubalu. But what I thought is, despite what happened, they could have handled it maturely. What transpired with the document, it was nothing that was harming anyone. They should have thought about the general good of the Liberian people, what the CPP meant to the Liberian people, the victories that they have won, and what they could have done come 2023. But instead, personal ego, greed, and they have never yet. But I still have not lost hope in the CPP. I think there is still a chance that what divide us is pale as compared to what will unite the CPP or whatever organization or merger that will come out in the end. So I will leave with this. As far as I'm concerned, the whole Timberwinds document stuff has been dealt with the Sherry Blair report. I'm not going to even entertain that kind of discussion anymore. I mean, Dennis, the thing is clear. What we need to do now is to find a way to move forward. The finger pointing has to stop. The opposition need to get more serious because a few days ago, we know who were standing up with Serena C4 and Marsha in court trying to prosecute another opposition leader. So we shouldn't act like that didn't happen. And, you know, we shouldn't act like it didn't happen. And we know who's going to be standing for the Liberian people in due time. Those people that are serious-minded, that are not just here for power grab, but that actually are prepared to fight for the Liberian people. We want to see that. In the end of the day, this 2022 will be a referendum against George Weah and the CDC bad leadership for the past 6 years. And if your life was better, if you believe that the George...
Thank you. This comment from DA King DA. You guys from the CPP cannot even admit that the confusion that you put your supporters in is affecting you. This just proves that you are not far-sighted. George, your closing comment On mute, please.
So Dennis, I want to say thank you. Let me go to Ahmed. I follow you guys on Tough Talking Thursday. I've never been on a panel, but let me just say very clear. When I'm on a panel and it's a panel discussion, it's different. Today actually should have been the Unity Party, so it was different. And our being here changed everything. So again, let me say a few things. You just heard my brother Al Fadiga say that whatever happened was minute. It was small. They could have settled among themselves. Then you say nothing happened again. So I don't know what the ANC folks want to tell the people. I don't know what supporters of Mr. Combs. You argue, he just said just now, it was not intended to harm anybody. That's not true, because we saw you guys trying to stop the Unity Party from viewing a candidate. Few things I wanted to just provide for the audience here. And I think I will close on this note here. To my brother Al Fadiga, you claim that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is a winner. Maybe, again, like I said from the initial statement, your understanding of history is very, very poor. Madam Sirleaf lost in the 1997 election. Madam Sirleaf contested elections which she lost before. Not only that, Madam Sirleaf ran against the CDC as a single party. Joseph Numa Boakai, his first trial was against a coalition or a collaboration, one that consisted of the former ruling party and the most popular Liberian soccer icon. So if we were to do that one, we speak in numbers. We will do that for another show. If we were to do the numbers, you will understand that Ambassador Boakai, first time, he outperformed Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. You all agree. You argue that the Unity Party was divided. And yet then, he was in a runoff. There are a few things I thought to bring to your attention. To tell you how strong and powerful the Unity Party is. This is why the Unity Party is the first party to leave power and remain the largest opposition political party in the country. The other parties are dead and gone, but UP remain relevant. Mr. Jai, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank our audience, to those of you who agree and disagree with us. But again, as I leave today, the most important thing come 2023, the question that will be asked. Elections is about the choices you make. Those choices do have consequences. The consequences will impact or change the course of your life. Many people today have a relative who have died because they went to some clinic. There were no funding, there were no drugs. I know people who die at Phoebe Hospital because there were no electricity. But I'll say this.
Yeah.
The CDC can give all its story, Mr. Jai. We'll be prepared. I know what the CDC is doing. Want to use the CPP as their winning stone. We'll make the case when the time is right. I want to thank you guys. Please, you have a chance come 2023 to set the country up for success. And Joseph Numa Boakai made that choice, and he's the best candidate. And we'll make the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in case you are in Monrovia, 15 Gate Incorporated in Upper Cowell, Monserrado County has all your ladies and men fashion design. So you could talk about the shoes, the bags, and all the fashion you can think of. Please come and shop the best in men and women clothes and footwear. The number to call 0775-165-416 or 0880-026-218. WhatsApp is 231-775-165-416. They're on Instagram and also Facebook. So please stop by. This Wednesday, we're going to be having Edwin Darlington Tue, aka D12 or D12. He's going to be here to talk about his new album and his musical career. You don't want to miss it. Mr. Sharif, let's get your closing comments, sir.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. And thanks to all my co-panelists. It's been an honor to be here with you all. And thanks to our listeners in Liberia and those that are following us in the diaspora. I have a few points quickly that I want to close with here. The overarching thing is politics is about perception, politics is about strategies and messaging. And part of this perception is if you spend time fighting each other, you're distracted from the main goal. And so, like Dr. Dukle said in our comment, the danger is the political parties fighting one another. Therefore, it may be that they're not paying attention to the bigger issues, right? And conflict is inevitable. I recognize that. I recognize also that it's important to use a court system, but the vitriolic nature, the fight, the way it happened in a political theater, that's what we're speaking to. The second thing is that there's an international component we're not talking about. We haven't really sat to think about the implications of all of this to our international partners, the United States particularly, right? Our grandfather would say that we always run to. The government, from my observation, I don't see them very much interacting or engaged with the U.S. government on the opposition side. On the other hand, if they're not organized, they should just bear that in mind, that the Americans at some point will play their cards, and politics is local, but politics can also be international. The Unity Party, I don't know if you've healed, but you have to heal the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf factors there. The Buckeye faction, the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf faction. So again, it boils down to the type of leadership we see. If you provide larger leadership, bring Ellen, reconcile, and we see that your house is united. We see you're able to lead and make sure that there's peace in the CPP. Then you give people hope and confidence. That's not happening. That's why we're questioning and we are asking these questions. We're not to denigrate anybody individually in their character or their name at all. And finally, my ANC folks, when I say my ANC, because people believe that the way I've been saying I don't like the messaging, I don't like the optics, and they think that I'm against Mr. Cummings or the ANC. I'm not at all. I'm just saying, if you're selling to me an individual who has been in corporate America, and he has been, and you sell him as not corrupt, as a person of high impeccable integrity, then you should have a bigger message around that. Right, that is not the only thing to say I'm better than all of you here. I'm clean hands. Have a better message for the Liberian people. Understand the needs of the people. To understand the country and the culture in which you want to be a leader. So I see this as a reset. The court decision and the dropping of the charges is as a reset for everybody. Reset for the government. Reset for the opposition side. A reset for the Liberian people. Now, how that reset happens is what remains to be seen. So we'll keep observing. We hope that they will make the best decision for the people, for our people, and in the interest of our country. So thank you again. There was a spirited discussion tonight.
Thank you, Prince. Let's close from Monrovia.
Yes, nothing more to say. Thanks to the guys of it, and this is something that we will always be confronted with. Whether we let drink first. For natural use of other things, so much to fill out our questions. So thanks. It's great being with you tonight. We hope to have a wonderful show on Wednesday.
Thank you. On that note, we want to close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Whether you are for JNB, ABC, TSG, or you are for me, we are all Liberians. And let us do whatever it takes to make our country the glorious land of liberty.
Thank you.
Good night, and God bless you.
Thank you all.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.